Hello again, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the marketplace. We're still celebrating 25 years of joy with you. My name is Aboagye-Wiafe. In this edition, coronavirus hits hard as CD suffers some losses against the dollar over the past weeks. We'll be finding out what is driving this pressure. Also in the bulletin, $1 billion to support government's fight against COVID-19 hits Bank of Ghana's account on Thursday. We'll get some further clarification from the IMF's country representative Albert Tunamama. Plus, some businesses begin to diversify into other ventures to help overcome the economic turmoil posed by the pandemic. These are the headlines for today we're working with, but of course we have other stories all in this edition of the Marketplace. Don't go away. Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace. Welcome back. Now, to overcome challenges posed by the outbreak of COVID-19, some businesses have begun exploring other opportunities that could help them survive the economic turmoil posed by the pandemic. One such business is bulk SMS distributor Haptel Ghana. The chief executive officer of the company, Alex Bram, says the outbreak of coronavirus has helped boost their e-commerce platform, where other businesses can also utilize to grow. There's more in this report.
Bulk SMS distributor Haptel has been in the telecommunication business for quite some time now. The company has now diversified into other sectors of the economy. It is now, among others, offering e-commerce platform where businesses can operate on. It also offers food delivery services where people can explore, especially during these times. According to the Chief Executive Officer of Haptel, Alex Bram, the current business environment is responding positively to the new era driven by the coronavirus pandemic.
This period has really helped us on the web store or on the online retail business in terms of the awareness from business owners, in terms of the number of deliveries that we are processing, in terms of the order fulfillment and the first time users, in terms of deliveries for the existing businesses that we have been doing a lot more. The deliveries have picked up, awareness too has picked up. Business owners are now sort of waking up to this new world that we're all being confronted with, and it's forcing us to look at technologies and things that we could, and tools that we could use to sort of have a semblance of the world that we...
He added that the outbreak of the pandemic has come as a wake-up call for businesses to come up with new ideas that will cause a change in the business environment.
As humans, we're capable of, meeting changes, even more than we give ourselves the credit for. COVID-19 is one of those sort of revolutionary periods in human history where things change significantly. It's one of those 9/11 or Second World War, those kinds of periods, and it helps spur new technologies or new ways of doing things. And also, what would be good is if we're able to have an indigenous e-commerce business out of Ghana, built by Ghanaians, for Ghanaians, with our own experiences, using our own people. And I think COVID has also revealed that you'd find that every country is finding their own way of dealing with the virus and are finding their own indigenous way. And perhaps it's the best time for us to also support our own indigenous ways of solving how we provide goods and services for ourselves.
Mr. Bram urges businesses to always prepare themselves against all odds and be ready to diversify their business in times of difficulties and other emergencies. Alberto Bisio's report for Joy Business.
Now, the city over the past weeks has suffered some serious losses against the dollar. JoyNews has been exploring what could be driving this pressure and what are the options to stabilize the situation.
The local currency, which used to trade at around 5 Ghana cedis, 40 pesos late February, based on quote from some of the major commercial banks, is now selling at around 5 Ghana cedis, 87 pesos. The pressure on the Ghana cedi since early March this year has been influenced by the decision of some offshore investors that bought into our bonds to get out. This is due to the uncertainty that the coronavirus has brought to economies around the world, forcing these businesses to review their investment and placing them in more safe assets like gold. The development has brought some pressure on the Ghana cedi, as government may have to look for some dollar cash to pay off these investors that want to get out of our bonds. A careful look at the last 2 bond results showed that government failed to secure the entire amount targeted. These offshore investors often bring in some dollars through the commercial banks, which goes a long way to boost our reserves, thereby helping to strengthen the local currency. The pressure heightened last week, resulting in the local currency hitting 6 Ghana cedis before it stabilized marginally this week, selling at around 5 Ghana cedis, 87 pesos, after the Bank of Ghana upped its intervention on the market. But there are still ongoing debates whether the central bank, looking at their strong reserve position, should increase the amount of dollar support for the market or allow forces of demand and supply to stabilize the situation. But having crossed the first quarter of this year, which is often described as a pressure period, can we say the challenges of the Ghana cedi are indeed over, and these current happenings should be seen as just normal blips? Well, some say that there are still some troubles ahead. This is because already Cocoa Board has indicated that looking at the current challenges of the global economy because of the coronavirus, they may have some challenges in raising the cocoa loan syndication on time, which often goes a long way to strengthen our reserves. Again, there are projections that foreign direct investment would slow, which might not be good news for the Ghana cedi. Or we should just say that we should trust the Bank of Ghana because they have what it takes to manage the situation, looking at their strong reserve position.
Well, let's still stay on these issues surrounding the local currency because $1 billion from the IMF is expected to hit the Bank of Ghana's account on Thursday, that's tomorrow. Could this help to improve the central bank's reserves and help also to stabilize the cedi in the coming weeks? Let's get the answers from Head of Research at Data Bank, Alex Aboagye, who joins us on phone for some thoughts. Yeah, welcome to the marketplace, Alex.
All right, thank you.
All right, so with all these dynamics, do you think that the cedi, will actually appreciate in the shortest time?
Well, appreciate is a different thing. Yes, but obviously it's going to have positive impact on the cedi, and because since it's going to the 1 billion, I think will show up the government reserve position. That could actually help the BOG to actually support the cedi when there's pressure on it. Because as I mentioned earlier, the main driver of the cedi's value at this moment is the bond market, which tend to see a lot of foreign investors selling their holdings of Ghana bonds or government of Ghana bonds on the secondary market, and that is actually putting a lot of pressure on the cedi. I mean, if you may recall, the cedi had a great year from January and some part of February, but for the past couple of weeks, for the past month, we have seen some depreciation pressures on the cedi, and that is as a result of the selling pressure that we are seeing on the bond market. You are talking about average daily turnover of over 1 billion or weekly turnover of over 1 billion, and most of them are coming from foreign investors. And when these foreign investors sell their Ghana holdings of Ghana government bonds, they will then have to repatriate by converting to the USD. So that puts a lot of pressure on the cedi, and that's the reason why, even though we have seen imports slowing down quite significantly, the cedi continues to depreciate both on the interbank and also on the forex market. The reason is that there's been a lot of sell-off on the bond market, secondary bond market, and that is actually putting a lot of pressure on the cedi. So it's a good news. I mean, it's something that is welcome, because $1 billion, I think, will help shore up the currency, and when need be, the Bank of Ghana can up their weekly auction numbers in terms of dollar supply in the banking system, and to ensure that the cedi remain stable. But to that said, I would also like to mention that we have seen a slowdown or tapering of the sell-off on the bond market. So naturally, you should see that actually also easing the pressure on the city. For example, we have seen a lot more domestic investors or the banks actually buying bonds on the secondary market. And what that means is that the domestic participation or holdings of government bonds is actually being ramped up. So that will actually curtail potential or reduce potential future pressure on the city, on the bond market. So yeah, I think it's a good news.
All right. So what about the impact on that? You know, the IMF $1 billion cash would hit the Bank of Ghana by tomorrow, Thursday. What is going to be its impact on the city's depreciation or appreciation?
Yes, I think that for sure it will help boost the city stability, as I mentioned, because the Bank of Ghana will strengthen its reserve position, and which could also enable the Bank of Ghana to actually pump more dollars in the system when required, as I mentioned earlier. So for sure, because if you look at the auction calendar, the forward auction calendar for this year, I think on average the bank intended to do about $40 million bi-weekly for the first quarter, because first quarter tends to be the most shaky part of the year for the city. So we have also noticed that for the past 2 weeks or so, they have actually reduced that auction amount to 20 million cedis on a bi-weekly basis. So that's because they don't want to obviously deplete the FX reserve. So that with this 1 billion, obviously it will strengthen their position, and they will be in a better position to support the city when required.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex Aboagye, for that information there. Of course, we'll still be staying on this. Pretty shortly, we'll bring you an interview with the IMF country representative in Ghana, Ahmed Tunamama, who will be telling us how exactly the $1 billion cash, which is expected to hit the Bank of Ghana's account tomorrow, would help revive the economy and other issues with regards to that. But before he comes in, contact tracing is a key element in the fight against the spread of COVID-19. This requires feet on the ground and other logistic support. But in a world where technology can be leveraged on many processes, Insurado speaks to Ghanaian tech entrepreneur Christian Asante, who has developed an app that can help improve Ghana's contact tracing efforts as more and more innovations emerge as part of the fight against COVID-19.
With a community app is actually one part of a whole solution that actually originated as a tool for communities to work with emergency services. In effect, what it does is when a person uses the app and presses an SOS alert, for instance, it informs every member of the community in a 2-mile radius, as well as the authorities. So if you have the police, the private security, and any other emergency services personnel in that 2-mile radius, they get the alert and attend to you. And in that alert, it gives them the directions to where the person is. So in effect, if you think about it, it gives us the opportunity to report an event where in the past we may have to make a call, sit on the telephone for a number of minutes, try to give directions, and get back to the solution to get the security forces to come to our aid. In this particular one, it gives us the opportunity to report unanimously, and in 5 seconds, all that is done. And the neighbors get it as well, so they can come to you. On top of that, the same applies for fire emergencies, as well as medical emergencies. And in the medical emergency, it is even more unique, because what it does is it informs hospitals and clinics within your 2-mile radius. Now, you don't have to stop a taxi and go all the way to the known hospital, which might be miles away. And in so doing, drive past 50 or 60 clinics where you could have had first contact and first service. So the solution itself was designed to help us in this environment where we perhaps don't have the best response teams because of lack of resources, and to help communities play an active role in attending to such emergencies. So that was the main cause of this Buddha Community App. And of course, it also had the opportunity or the functionality for third-party reporting. And so if you had a flood and you reported it, it's designed to go to a specific agency, let's say NADMO, within your area. If you move to Tema, it will know you are in Tema and it will report in Tema, the local NADMO office. If you saw an accident and you reported it, it would inform all the clinics, all the police, and all the emergency services that need to attend to their accident within that locality. And it helps put this function at a local level and at a community level. So that was the main bulk of what Buddha Community does.
That's a brilliant.
Well, let's get back to our earlier story where we've been telling you about how the $1 billion IMF cash will hit the Bank of Ghana's accounts tomorrow, that's Thursday. This was after necessary documentation was finalized in Washington, D.C. earlier this week. Let's get on Skype and speak with the IMF country representative Albert Tuna Mama now for some thoughts. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the market, please.
Good afternoon.
Now, so all other things being equal, the money would be in the Bank of Ghana's account tomorrow. Is the disbursement going to be made in tranches to Ghana?
Thank you for having me. As you know, the executive board of the IMF approved a disbursement of around $1 billion under the rapid credit facility for Ghana. Yes, it's correct that the money should be paid in one tranche. This is a loan, a zero-free interest rate loan to Ghana. It's not a program, as I already mentioned, so there won't be conditionalities attached to this money. So the money should be available in the coming days, hopefully tomorrow.
All right, that's good news. Now, the IMF in its latest World Economic Outlook report is warning the sub-region is expected to go into a recession. What is the situation for Ghana?
In our current projections, we forecast growth to be around 1.5% this year in 2020. As you know, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is driven by non-economic factors, the length of the crisis, the duration, I should say, of the crisis, okay, and how deep this crisis will affect various sectors of the economy. For a lot of countries on the continent, the situation is very much different than what we have here in Ghana. But at the moment, given what we are seeing, our forecast is to have growth to the tune of around 1.5% this year. We will obviously reassess that as we go. And I would also like to point out that this is very much function of the success of the strategy to fight the virus in Ghana. So, let's see what happens. But I think that the measures that are currently in place, to the extent that they can slow down the virus and that people can stay at home as advised by the health authorities, this will go a long way in, succeeding in fighting the virus and going back to business as normal or as usual.
Right. Now, is the IMF still worried about the country's high debt distress position?
That has not changed, and for a lot of countries, this crisis will make things worse, unfortunately. The classification of Ghana as being at high risk of debt distress remains the same. I think at the moment, given the forecast that I just gave you, there is no expectation that will change. So I respond, yes, it's still very much the same classification.
All right. Now, we've also raised concerns about pressure on the Ghana cedi. Is this particular tranche or monies going to make any impact on the position of the cedi?
I mean, I would like to first say that, Ghana has a flexible exchange rate regime. So the exchange rate role is to be a shock absorber, especially in circumstances like this one where emerging markets and frontier economies face tremendous pressure in terms of capital outflows, portfolio outflows from non-resident investors or some other channels. Yes, it's important for central bank to have buffers to more or less reduce this volatility, but the expectation is not to have a peg or to have a fixed regime, a fixed exchange rate regime. So to answer your question, yes, the 1 billion will be additional buffers for the central bank. But as I said, the trade-off obviously is between using the buffers to remove to maintain some form of stability, but also letting the exchange rate play its role of shock absorber.
All right, now finally, before you go, there are also some concerns because many people believe that this current development is an indication that the country will once again return for a fund program. What's your take on that?
I mean, let me first say that this is an unprecedented crisis. It compares and can even be worse than the Great Depression of 1929 and the 30s. It's unprecedented. As an institution, we've received close to 90 requests for emergency financing. This is even more than during the global financial crisis in 2008. So the magnitude is just unparalleled, right? So of course, countries will be affected differently. And no one can know at the moment what will happen. I think what is working in Ghana's favor now is that given what we've seen and the forecast that we agreed to, Ghana is still expected to grow this year. And for that matter, there was no discussions whatsoever on a program with the IMF.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Albert Mamatuna. He's the IMF country representative in Ghana, sharing his thoughts. We're still live on the marketplace. Let's take a short break here. We'll be right after this.